Welcome back to the third part of Maximize Your Soul's Growth series. I never thought that I would be doing a seminar teaching people about the signs. I am a corporate girl. I was in the corporate world for 10 years and I was in managerial positions. I was not looking at animals. I wasn't even noticing flowers. In fact, I remember taking maternity leave and noticing the flowers in my neighborhood and saying, oh, there's flowers here. I was so stressed out, I wasn't seeing anything. To take it this far, all these years later, and I will be telling you one story after another about how the universe has been sending me signs and teaching you how to do it. What's interesting for me in this journey is that whatever happens to me in my life, I always think, how am I going to teach others about it? But I didn't think I would ever teach about the signs. So here we are. When we follow the signs, we follow our intuition and we respect our souls. That's how important it is. Our souls come here with a specific purpose. But we think a lot of times that we're here all alone to do this work. But we're never alone. And if we start paying attention to the signs, we know without a doubt that we are not alone and we are being guided every step of the way. We are sent signs so that we receive direction in our lives, so that we receive confirmation of our decisions, so that we are told what is to come, and so we can be knowing that our thoughts and feelings have validity and that we're on the right track. So there's so many different purposes for signs. We open our hearts and souls to the wonders that are available to us when we're looking at signs. We can starve as much from lack of wonder as we can from lack of food. You know how we go through our lives and sometimes it's so boring and so humdrum, but if we start paying attention to the signs, we see the wonders and we realize how incredible this world is. Just yesterday I was walking in the snow in the sun, which you know we've had very little sun this winter, and just looking at the sparkles in the snow. There are wonders around us all the time. We just have to see them. So signs come to us from nature, animals, feathers, coins, different numbers, specific circumstances, technology, flowers, certain smells. So there are all different ways in which we're receiving signs. So every animal has multiple meanings. An incredible man named Ted Andrews that created a book called Animal Speak. And in that book, you look up any particular animal, insect, sea life, bird, and you can look up all the meanings. There's a general meaning assigned to each animal. So what I do is I just learn the general meanings for each animal, and then that way I know how to apply it to my life. It was about 10 or 11 years ago I did a fast. And I did the fast for 4 days, so all I drank was water. And on the fourth day, they tell you when you do these fasts that you get a lot more heightened awareness and spirits can talk to you more easily at that stage. So I did this, and that's literally why I did the fast, was just to see what they would tell me. So that's when they told me that I would be writing 3 books. And they said that you'll be writing one on physical healing, one on emotional healing, and one on spiritual healing. And I heard it so clearly. It's really the only thing I heard clearly of the whole day. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if I know enough about the emotional healing. I felt that I was on my way with the others. But that's when you know, when you're given information and you don't know whether it's true or not, and you know you couldn't have come up with it yourself, you think, oh, but they said I'm writing one on emotional healing, and I knew I could write one on physical and spiritual healing. So it must be true. You get information, and if it's different than what you would come up with, you know it's often from above. So they told me that I would be writing this book on spiritual well-being, but I knew I had to wait till people were ready for it. And look at how many people today have shown up to hear about this, to hear about symbolism. Do you think 10 years ago or 11 years ago when I was doing this fasting that I would have got this many people in attendance? I wouldn't have. And it's because what I talked about in my first seminar was that the awareness is increasing in our world. All these planetary shifts, everything that's going on with the eclipses and the most recent snow moon, all of that is increasing our awareness. So we are realizing that we are spiritual beings in physical bodies, not the other way around. Well, I was noticing a lot of signs about a year ago, and one of the signs was spiders everywhere. And I would be talking to a client and I would see the spider on the wall behind them. I wouldn't mention that there was a spider around them. And I kept seeing them everywhere. And I know that the spider means it's time to get creative. It's time to form your web. And I thought, oh, I've got to be creative. How am I supposed to be creative? And I couldn't think of it. I didn't know. And I saw more spiders. Every single day I was seeing spiders. I thought, okay, I think it's this third book, but I'm not ready to write it. I don't have a vision for how I'm going to write it. Well, then the spiders started biting me, and I had over 20 spider bites on my body. And then I knew, okay, even if I don't have a vision for how I'm going to write this book, I'm going to sit down in front of my laptop. I'm going to see what they give me. The whole book was written in 5 months because they downloaded everything to me. That's how it can happen. And I remember hearing other people say that that's how they'd written their book. And I thought, oh, my books are full of research. My first book took me 5 years to write. And I would read, oh, they wrote the book so quickly because it was all downloaded. And I thought, oh, that would be great if that happened to me. But I didn't think it would. But it did. And it was all because those spiders were biting me and saying, do this, do this. And that's how it happened. A blue jay is a bird that represents happiness. But for me, the blue jay represents something so much more. So those of you that have been at my other seminars, you know that my brother died of a drug overdose. And when we were at his funeral, we were all out in the garden in British Columbia at the back of a church, and we were doing the internment. And my brother's friends were there, and he was only 31, so there was a lot of people there. And a blue jay came and started making all this noise. Now, do any of you know the blue jay noise? It can really be annoying. So my brother's friends said, Jay is here. And my brother's name was Jay, and it was a blue jay. And my brother could talk your face off. And he was known for that, but everybody loved him. But he did talk a lot. And so when they said, Jay is here, I registered it, and I was like, oh, he's here. And from that point onwards, whenever I see a blue jay, and most of the people in my life know that when we see a blue jay, if we're on a walk in the trees or whatever, he's with me. And sometimes it's confirming a decision about a person that I've made or just a decision in general, but I always get the guidance when I need it. Now, when my mother-in-law died of cancer, she was a very happy woman, wore bright colors. She was always busy and always thinking about things she was going to do. Well, after she died, this little yellow bird, it was actually a yellow finch, they almost look like a hummingbird. They're very, very small. And they fly around like this. You look at them like, you're crazy. Well, that's the bird that kept coming around after she died. And to this day, when I see a yellow finch, I know it's her with me. So that's my specific meaning for those birds. But that doesn't mean that it's everybody's meaning, right? So there are general meanings, and then there are specific meanings. Some of you would say, well, in Ontario, there are a lot of squirrels here. If I'm seeing squirrels, does that mean anything? Because we have tons of squirrels. They're always around. So my answer to that is that when I've been paying attention to the signs for years now, I don't know how many years, maybe 15, and it's just grown more and more as I've gone along. And I can tell you that every squirrel I see has meaning. Now, the squirrel means get prepared. So the squirrel tells me that something's going to go wrong and that I have to be prepared for it. And what I like about this is that every time something goes wrong, I get the squirrel the day before or the day of. I think the universe knows that this is going to happen to me, and they know it's okay, and they're just warning me, right? I find that fascinating. So I've had squirrels bracing on their haunches on my fence, like they're scared and shaking. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a bad one. And then I've had them falling down fences. How does a squirrel fall down a fence? They know this territory. That's their world, right? How are they falling down fences? But that's my sign. Oh, this is going to be a doozy. Sometimes I see a squirrel just eating a big nut. I'm like, okay, get prepared for something big, right? So for me, the squirrels are always symbolic. But for you, because if you are new to reading signs, you may not find that every single squirrel around is symbolic for you. But as you start working with the signs more, you'll see that they can be. If the universe knows that that's how they can reach you, they will use the animals to help you. Now, my mom loves the story of the raccoon. I was on a date for 5 hours. So you would say, oh, that sounds like a good date. It was first date, 5 hours. And I get out and I'm thinking, oh, he's really aware. Maybe this could work with this guy. And I'm driving down Yonge Street. And Yonge Street is a rather busy street, correct? How often have you guys seen raccoons running across Yonge Street? Right. So I see this raccoon go by and I know that someone's wearing a mask. You know the mask on the raccoon? I knew someone was wearing a mask and I knew it wasn't me. So I thought, oh, it's him. But I thought, oh, you know what? This is the best guy I've met in a long time. I'll just stick with it. Next morning, I got another sign, which was a dime in my snow at my front door. Now, you guys would say, I've heard that dimes are just someone that you know is up there in heaven and they're just letting you know they're with you. Often we'll hear dimes or coins are just sent from angels or sent from people that we've lost. When I found the dime in the snow the next day, for me, the meaning of the dime is someone's cheating on you or someone's cheating you, right? Either way. So I thought, okay, that's it. I'm not seeing this guy on a second date. And he actually knew me well enough from spending 5 hours with me that I could tell him, I'm not coming to meet you because I've seen signs that it's not right. And he said, seriously, you're going to come and go out of my life that quickly? And I said, yeah, I'm sorry, but I take my signs so seriously. So a couple weeks later, I have another date and I'm on my way and I'm driving in the Jeep and I'm in the country and a raccoon goes in front of the Jeep. And I'm like, come on. I'm just carrying on. I'm ignoring it. I get to the stop sign and the voice in my head is saying, no, it's not right. And I think about the guy and I'm like, Meredith, you know this is not right. So I turn around and I pull over on the side of the street and I write him and I told him about the raccoon. And he said, Meredith, I live in the country. You're going to see raccoons. And I said, no, like not me. And so over the years, my daughters, my mom, they've teased me a lot about the raccoon. If I go on another date, they say, so seen any raccoons since? My symbolism comes up a lot and makes people chuckle, but it's helpful to me. And you can see how that's helpful. I just got to avoid that whole other date with that guy that wasn't right for me. The fox represents that someone is deceiving you. If you see those coming across your path, you know that that's also not a good sign. Does anybody have an animal they really are desperately wanting to know the meaning of? Yes, Lucy. A hawk. A hawk means that you are being guided. And I see them a lot. They are with you and they're saying, we're guiding you. We're with you. Yes. Mouse. Oh, that's the one I was going to tell. This is great. So a mouse is stop paying attention to the little details and focus on the big picture. You're too detail oriented. Yeah. Yes. A rabbit. So a rabbit represents prosperity or also fear. Because one time I came out of a healing session and I felt so free and so good. And I saw a dead rabbit on the end of this woman's driveway. And I knew that the rabbit meant prosperity and fertility. You know how many babies they have, right? I'm like, the death of my prosperity? What? How could that be? So I'm researching it. And you can Google symbolism of rabbit, symbolism of moose, So I looked it up and it was also fear. And I thought it was the death of fear for me. Now, just so you know, we come here to Earth and we always have fear. It's what guides us and it keeps us safe. But I had too much fear of ending a relationship And it was saying I just needed to let go of some of that fear, and that I'd obviously done that in my healing session. And how powerful is that, that you find a dead rabbit at the end of a driveway when you've just had a healing session with someone, right? Okay, I'll take one more. A moose. Oh, I was afraid you'd ask about the moose. I don't know about the moose. But it's good because you guys know how quickly you can look it up. Moose. Its new birth of power is coming. Invitation to deepen awareness approaches. A unique and sacred energy is being awakened. Yeah, it fits? Good. Do you want to share that? Now I want to talk to you about songs. And the reason I decided to tell you about the songs right now is I came out of I ended a relationship with someone, and I came out of their house and I turned on my Jeep radio, and the song came on, Another One Bites the Dust. And I just started laughing because I had felt so badly for this guy that I'd ended another one. And then that came on and I just laughed and I was totally fine. But we can also hear songs that we knew with someone that was alive with us. So we share songs with people. And so that can come on the radio after they've gone. I remember one time after my brother had gone, and I heard 3 songs in a row that were our songs. And I just was like, how do they coordinate all that? So songs have different meaning and symbolism for us too. So now I'm going to tell you about how come the dime had the symbolism for me that it did. We can request signs, however, it is better to wait for them in the universe. But my girlfriend called me up one day and she said, Meredith, I'm having a big problem and I want to talk to you about it. And I said, well, I'm just about to go on a walk, give me a second. And I don't normally walk with my cell phone, but I decided to take my cell phone on the walk so that I could help her because I didn't want to miss my walk. And I was walking in the snow. This is a few years ago. And she said, so Meredith, I think my husband's cheating on me. And what I've done is I've asked the universe to make a dime show up somewhere in my house where it doesn't belong so that I know he's cheating on me. And I'm just about to say, no, that's not going to work. When she says, but I found a dime where it didn't belong. And I said, really? And she starts describing where it was. So she said, I got my confirmation he's cheating on me. And I'm still not believing that this was right because I didn't think we could request specific signs. As I'm listening to her explain it, I'm walking in the snow in the forest and there is a dime in the snow. And so you see how when you look for the signs and you believe that you're not alone here, you are sent them. And so I just said to her, oh my gosh, there's a dime in the snow here. And I said, okay, so he is cheating on you, so what are you gonna do? And like, perfect. And she says, well, remember a few years ago I cheated on him? And I said, yes. And she said, this is my payback. Isn't that wise of her? You know how many people do cheat on someone and then they're cheated on and they say, oh, that's it. She knew she had done wrong. So she said, I'm going to go to marriage counseling with him and I'm going to see if I can fix this. And that's exactly what they did. No, neither of them confessed. Never. And it's years now that have gone by and neither of them confessed. Yeah. So that's how come for me the dime became someone's cheating or someone's cheating on you. But you see how these signs, the meaning of them develops as you see them over time in conjunction with your life. So now I want to read about the symbolism of the flowers. And I'm new to the flowers. I have not studied them in detail. I was writing this book and remember, I have a hard time believing that I'm actually coming out in the world and talking about spiritual things. So I was doubting whether I could really write this book, even though the spiders are out and saying, you know, write. So I ended up one day coming up to my house, and in the garden was a white iris. Now, I planted this garden, and I never planted an iris. So I said to my daughter, have you ever seen that flower in our garden before? And she said, no. And I said, "You're sure, right?" And she said, "No." And I said, "I know, we've had this garden for years. I've never seen this." So I looked it up. I literally just Googled it, symbolism of iris. And this is the quote that I took out of Google. "You are a divine link between heaven and earth, and a messenger of the divine. You are open to the spirit world, skilled at spiritual communication, and a guide connecting the living and the dead. You have psychic abilities and great intuition." I looked at that flower completely different afterwards and thought, wow, they literally put a flower in my garden to say, "You can do this, you have this ability." And then I had such excitement about this book and believing that I could write it the way it was supposed to be written. As I was preparing for this seminar, I have an orchid in my washroom. Some of you that are here from nutrition school know that there was a woman that found my first book, used it to help her daughter that had autism. And she was a non-speaking, thank you, and she was a non-speaking autistic girl. And her mom knew her daughter was fine when she was born, but over the years, different things had happened, more and more toxicity, and now she wasn't speaking and she was diagnosed with autism. And the doctor said that she was not going to ever be able to function in the world normally. So the woman got a hold of my book. I just have very little, just point form what to do to help with autism. And she followed what it said. And then she followed the steps in the back of the book on how to heal the gut. And her daughter no longer had autism. When I was teaching this class, I just introduced myself as Meredith, not as the resourceful mother. And when I was teaching the class, she said, "Are you the resourceful mother?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Your book saved my daughter." Well, recently she was made valedictorian of her class at Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And I was there because I was the keynote speaker at the event. She stood up and told the whole room, it was 500 people, about finding my book. But before she told them she found the book, she explained all the different things she'd done to try to help her daughter. And then she said how the book had saved her. And this woman gave me an orchid to thank me for what I had done to help her daughter. Preparing for the seminar, I thought, oh, I'll look up the orchid. And what it means is, you deserve all the riches in the world. And she probably didn't know that that was the meaning of the orchid, but that's how she would view me with helping her in this way. But this is just nutrition and what it can do for us in general. It's not me. It's what we learn at nutrition school. So, numbers. I remember a number of years ago being in a restaurant, and it was at the film festival at TIFF. And I was at a restaurant with a girlfriend. We were discussing angels and whether angels are always helping us or whether we need to ask them for help. And we didn't know the answer. Now I've done a lot more research and I know these things, but back then we didn't know. So we just said, well, hopefully we'll find this out at some point. So the waiter at the end of the meal comes over to us and says, "Ladies, you're going to find this really odd, but your bill came to $63 and you're at table 63. And he said, I can't get over that. So then we got out our phones and we just looked up the meaning of 63. And it meant that the angels are always helping us, but we can also ask for their help. And so we got the confirmation, like we got the answer to this thing we were discussing over dinner. And I thought, how remarkable is that? We told the waiter the meaning too, just, in case he could benefit from it. But the numbers all have different meanings. So if you're sitting here listening to me and you've got a pen and paper and you start drawing an 8, maybe even sideways, just doing this. First of all, that's a brain gym move and it helps make your brain work to optimal capacity. But secondly, 8 represents power, abundance, and prosperity. So if you keep drawing the number 8, thinking about the number 8, you can literally bring more of that into your life. Yeah. Number 7 is about individual completeness. And it's about knowing our perfection. Have you ever realized that there's 7 days of the week? There's 7 continents. There are 7 colors of the spectrum. There's 7 planes of matter. There are 7 chakras. So it's all about individual completeness. So if you're imagining 7 or thinking of 7 in your life, think about getting to know your own perfection and getting to come to love yourself. Number 6, I'm not going through all of them, I just give a few examples, but number 6 helps us become more balanced. So if we're seeing 6s all the time, it's actually 2 sets of 3. And the 6s are just to bring more balance and help us feel more harmonious in our lives. 5 is about love and marriage and loyalty. So you can be writing 5 if you're trying to work on your love life. And you would think, Meredith, you should be doing that based on these stories you're telling us about dating. When we are seeing triple numbers all the time, so we're seeing 555, 444, 33, this means, and this is when we're seeing them all the time, this means that we have reached a new level in our spiritual development. So that's such a great sign when you're seeing those triple numbers. All right, I'm going to teach you now about circumstances and the meaning of circumstances in our lives. So I was teaching at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, and up until that point of my teaching years, I had only been teaching about physical healing, not so much about emotional healing. We are taught in the school about emotional healing and how our thoughts affect our bodies, as you learned about if you were here at the last seminar. But I wasn't teaching a lot about the emotions. And I had been a speaker since I was 20. In the corporate world, I was speaking to large groups, usually quite discerning male brokers. So I was always speaking about things that were very factual. You know, when you're talking about nutrition, it's always very physical. It's not usually about your feelings. Well, this particular class that I was teaching in Mississauga, they knew that I dedicated my second book to my brother. And the reason I dedicated the book to him was because he wanted to make this world a better place, but he couldn't get over his own pain from our childhood. And so I thought, by dedicating this book to him, it's his way of helping all the people that read that book and benefit from it. And the students, one of them asked me, why did you dedicate the book to your brother? And they hadn't read the book. And they just quickly looked at it because it was just out. And when I told them, it was my first time speaking from the heart as opposed to the head. Remember loving doing that and thinking, wow, there's a whole other world. If I can help people open up their hearts versus just explaining research, that's so much more fulfilling for me. So at the end of the class, we ended up talking a lot about feelings, and I told them various stories and they loved it. And at the end of the class, one of them was waiting for me to pack up. And I said, no, I'm going to be a few minutes. And she said, no, I don't want you walking outside alone, because I would always teach till 10 o'clock and it was dark. And she said, I don't want you to walk out to your car alone because you need to be protected. And I said, no, I'm always safe. Like that's something I've known about myself. I'm always safe in the dark or wherever I go. And she said, no, I want to walk you to your car. So I said, okay. So she walked me out to my car. I've not received a lot of nurturing in my life. And when she left me, I started to cry because she had taken that care for me, right? And then I thought, that was so significant, that whole talk and talking to them from my heart. I want to do more of that. So I drove home. The next day, I saw a car accident. Now, I didn't see the accident actually happen, but I saw someone being taken away on a stretcher. And I thought, oh, that's horrible. You never see that. You often see the accident, maybe even the accident happen. You don't usually see the person being taken away. The next day, I saw the same thing. Another section of Wellington, someone was being put in a stretcher, and I saw it. And I'm like, what? That's weird. Why would I see that 2 days in a row? Didn't think anything more about it. Third day, saw another, this time young girl, being put on a stretcher and taken away, and her bike was all mangled up on the road. And so then I needed to know, what is the symbolism of me seeing people in stretchers? So all of you came in through those doors, and Nicole Christine signed you in and helped you, know what you needed to know today. So she's studied symbolism in more depth than I had for years prior to when I really got into this. So when I asked a number of people what they thought the symbolism was, and they were giving me answers that didn't feel true to me. So I called her up and I said, you got to help me figure this one out. Didn't even say much at all. She was just told me after that she was just spreading her tarot cards in front of her. And she picked up the card and she said, it says death of former self. And I said, oh, that's it. That is it. I knew that my logistical, logical left brain was no longer going to dictate my talks. I was going to be using my heart. And that was, obviously the universe felt it was very important that I get that understanding for them to have me see people in stretchers. Ironically, when I was writing this third book, every single day of the 5 months I was writing it, I saw emergency vehicles, whether it be police, ambulances, every single day, fire engines. And I remember noticing it and going, wow, this has to be symbolic, but what a horrible symbolism that obviously all these people are in trouble. So I finished the book in a hotel and the fire alarm went off and all the firemen came and I'm like, what? This is more symbolism about these emergency vehicles. And I just was shaking my head, and we weren't outside long before they told us what the problem was, and they said, it's fine, you can go back in. But I was very bothered about what this meant, and I didn't feel it was a good sign. So I asked a few people, and remember, what they have to say has to resonate with you. And it wasn't resonating. And then finally I asked someone, and she said, well, Meredith, aren't you going to be saving souls with your book? And I said, well, that's pretty lofty. That's pretty lofty. When I was preparing for this seminar and I was thinking about how I called this seminar series Maximize Your Soul's Growth, I thought that is what I'm doing. I'm helping people understand that it's their souls that come here to grow and to experience all the challenges we do so that we evolve in the direction we want to evolve in. When she told me this, I said, well, I love that. That's great, but I didn't really believe I'd be doing that. And literally preparing for this seminar today, I was like, oh yeah, maximize your soul's growth. That's what I'm doing. You'll have to touch base with me in a few years and see how I do with it. But that was really incredible symbolism. I'm gonna tell you a funny story about, do you guys know about nose hair pickers? They're little electronic gadgets and guys use them. Yeah, spirits will reach us through technology as well. So I was in my bathroom and I had a friend of mine in the bathroom with me, and we're just talking and the nose hair picker goes off. And he says, oh, I'll just go turn that off. So he opens up the medicine cabinet and turns it off, and he thinks it's done. I say, okay, and then we're carrying on our business and we're talking and it goes off again. And I said, oh, Jay is with us. And he knew Jay, my brother. I said, he's with us, he's just letting us know he's here. And this guy says, no, that's not, I just didn't turn it off right. And I said, okay, go turn it off. But if it goes off one more time, he's telling us he's with us right now. And he says, yeah, okay, whatever, Meredith. Goes over, turns it off, comes back to me, it goes off again. He literally jumped. Goes, what is going on? And I said, I told you, it's just him saying, hey, I'm here. And I thought that was such an incredible experience. And it's funny that he would use the nose hair picker because he had a lot of humor, like really funny. Now I'm going to tell you the story about my fire alarm going off and what that meaning was. So this was only about a year ago. My girls are sleeping in the house and I'm sleeping, and the fire alarm goes off, and the one slept right through it. So what's that tell you? That's not good. It was blaring. So I go down and I am trying to figure out why this would have gone off. And there's no reason for it to go off. There was no smoke, there was nothing wrong. So I just waited till it went off. I didn't know how to turn it off myself. And I went back to bed. When you're back in the deep sleep, that's when the fire alarm went off again. And I was like, what? So I was like, there really must be something wrong. So I go down, check, there's nothing wrong. So I get back into bed and I Google symbolism of fire alarm going off twice. Literally, I just Googled it. And it said, either your fire alarm needs new batteries or a spirit is trying to get in touch with you. And I was like, well, you know how I think, right? And the thing is, once the spirits know that you will Google things and you will look things up, they send you what they know you'll look up. So I thought, okay, what spirit's trying to get a hold of me? And I had really been thinking a lot about my friend Kim that I told you about last time, who died because of the GBS. She was paralyzed from the neck down. And she died at 31 as well, ironically. I just put that together. She left her children behind. And so she actually came as a ghost, you could say, a spirit, to my eldest daughter. My eldest daughter saw her all thin and pale. She said to my daughter, I can't leave my kids. I can't leave them. This was the day after she died. And my daughter said, it's okay. Everything's taken care of. This is the way it's supposed to be. Just go to the light. And my daughter directed her to go to the light, which she did do. And then the next day, this woman was able to witness her funeral from up there, which is the peaceful place, as opposed to being stuck in between the worlds. I had been thinking about her and I thought it's her trying to get in touch with me, but I couldn't figure out what she'd be wanting to try to tell me. I went and talked to my eldest daughter the next morning and I said, who do you I asked questions, yes or no questions, so that she just says whatever comes first to her mind. And I said, do you think this was Kim? And she said, no. And I'm like, I was sure it was Kim. And then she said, I see a little boy. It was a little boy. And I said, oh, well, Kim has a son. And then I said the boy's name. And my daughter said, oh my gosh, that's the name I got. But I thought I had it wrong. So I knew I was supposed to help Kim's son in some way. I wrote to Kim's mom and I said, you're going to find this odd. I knew she believed in all this stuff, so that was good. But I said, you're going to find this odd. My fire alarm went off twice. Kim's trying to get in touch with me. It has to do with her son. Can you think of what is needed here? Does he need life coaching and or nutrition help? And she said, I don't know. Why don't you come over and talk to him and be with both kids and just see what's needed? So I said, okay. We booked the date, but then something happened so that we couldn't meet. And Kim's mom had proposed a number of other times for me to come over, but I didn't answer because I was really busy. And it was 2 or 3 days and I hadn't answered about when I was going to go. Doesn't the fire alarm go off again? And I said to Kim's mom, she is really stubborn. And she said, oh, that's my Kim. If she wants to get a hold of you, she will keep at it. And I'm like, wow, but it's so drastic. Like the fire alarm it's invasive, it's loud. And she's like, yeah, well, she's getting her point across. So I went over and I met with Kim's kids. And I loved that because Kim was a really good friend of mine. And I loved being with her kids all these years after Kim's death. And I started talking to them about seeing Kim's spirit and about what a great person she was. The daughter was talking about that she has a relationship with her mom and she sees her spirit. And I said, oh, good. And then I realized that the little boy didn't have that relationship with his mother. But he was all ears. He wanted to hear about all of this. Well, I left not knowing if I had done what I was supposed to do or not. But then Kim's mom wrote me and she said, Meredith, when you left, the kids came inside and they said goodbye to you. But then the boy got the message that he feels was from his mom, that he had left his coat in the backyard and he had to go get it because it was going to rain. And he said, yeah, Mom told me I have to go get my coat. And so this mother knew that we had connected the boy with his mother and that when he hears her, we're helping him hear her and know it was her so that she could stay in touch with her son. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. With technology, sometimes it's a grandfather clock that just stops at a particular moment because there's something important for the individual seeing it to do. Certainly Kim's mother feels she hears from her mother through the grandfather clock. One time I was writing a really important letter to someone, and I wasn't sure if I was done. And he was going to die of cancer, and I wanted to ask him to do some things before he died. And I was just like, I don't know if I've got it all. And my TV had been on in the background, and it went off all by itself. And I knew that my letter was complete, right? So technology is always there guiding us and giving us signs. Now I want to teach you about car problems. So our car problems all have significance and meaning to us. They literally are giving us signs all the time. So the first time I experienced this was just, I don't know, about 3 years ago, maybe 2. I was driving my girls everywhere. My youngest decided to be on every single sports team that the school had to offer. And then she also had she had friends, and I was just driving my kids constantly. So I remember sitting in my front room with my back totally straight and just thinking about, where do I have to go next? Like I just couldn't even relax. I was like, I have to be somewhere, where is it? And I knew that I was just so stressed with all this driving. I don't know how long it was after I noticed the stress of all this driving. I got out of my Jeep, I took the key out of my Jeep, and the Jeep kept running. How does a vehicle keep running when there's no key in it? And I thought, well, I'm going to put the key back in and I'll try again to turn it off. It wouldn't. So I just had to let it run out of gas and get it towed the next morning. Now, at the service station, they had an explanation for this, which I can't recall. But I thought, oh my gosh, my car is so overworked, and it's symbolism for me. It was so overworked, it kept running without a key in it. That's me, right? Yeah. Like my symbolism is so strong, partly because I'm aware of it, so they send me more, but partly because this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Otherwise, why is it this strong? Seeing people on stretchers, fire alarms going off, like ambulances every single day for 5 months. Obviously, this is what I'm supposed to do, which still surprises me because I still think like a corporate girl. So car problems, they're in my book. So for those of you that have this book, you don't need to write them down. But those of you that don't, I'd like to share them with you so that you can understand and start to see the symbolism with your cars. If you get into a car accident, it is them trying to wake you up. It is a need for immediate action regarding an aspect of either the driver or the passenger's life. And by the way, cars don't hit one another without it being meaningful for both parties. So the accident stops the person from going in the direction they're headed. It's dramatic intervention, which they feel is necessary to precipitate change. Isn't that interesting? So every accident has meaning. And people will come to me and they'll be coming for life coaching, and they'll say, yes, I've had 3 accidents in the last month. And I say, okay, let's talk about the symbolism of that. And then they say, okay, what direction am I going in that is wrong? And then we start analyzing that. When the air conditioner stops working in the car, the driver has lost their cool. They're getting hot under the collar about things. They are easily angered, and they need to prioritize their own needs. If you can't get your car into reverse, the driver can't back out. They have a pattern of getting themselves into situations they cannot get out of. A dead battery. Now, just before I continue, I just got the message that you're going to say, but Meredith, every car gets a dead battery at some point. But it's the timing of when that dead battery occurs. So the dead battery means overloaded. The driver is unable to get up and go. They have too many responsibilities and are run down. Brake failure. There must be some way out of here. The driver is always looking for the exit and feeling they don't belong here or that they don't want to be here. They are being warned that they will find the exit if they don't come to love who they are. Because you know that that's what we talked about in the first seminar, was that our souls come here to love who they are. And once we love who we are, our whole lives go so much better. How about when you can't find your car? You know, when you're at the mall and you're like, I don't know where my car is, and it happens to you all the time. If it happens every once in a while, it's okay. But if it's happening all the time, it's either the driver is not sure of who they are, or they are not in harmony with their identity. They are continually given the message by their family that they're not acceptable. When someone gets pulled over for drunk driving, the message is, please stop me. They're suffering, they're drinking too much, but they get caught, they're being asked, stop me, help me. The driver has a self-destructive pattern that is deepening to serious proportions. They've hit rock bottom. So then there's the rest of society hearing about, oh, look at you, how could you drive when you're drunk? This person's hit rock bottom. They're in horrible pain, but the rest of us are judging them, saying, how could you do that? A flat tire. By the way, each tire has its own specific meaning, but this is the general meaning. Stopped in their tracks. The driver has run into a problem and they don't know what to do about it. They are encouraged to clear their self-distrust and improve their coping skills. Some people have a propensity for running out of gas all the time. I actually knew a guy that was always running out of gas. Now, can anybody figure out the symbolism of that? Anybody want to volunteer? All right. It's the individuals running out of gas. Yeah. So they are running on all cylinders and they're not slowing down. They're not noticing the flowers or the squirrels. When someone gets towed away, their car is towed, they have right to exist issues. They believe they don't deserve to take up space or resources. They were likely shamed or neglected as a child. So again, there's that person getting towed away and someone else saying, oh, how could you let that happen? But look what's really going on behind it. Everybody that makes a mistake, or what we think is a mistake in their actions, is actually suffering and in pain. So now I'm going to tell you about dreams. Now, I do not analyze my dreams, and I often don't remember my dreams. And do you want to know why? Because I have a zinc deficiency. And you would say, well, you know how to fix that, Meredith. You're a nutritionist. I just can't be bothered. I know. I know I need more zinc. But I do so many other things for my health. And it's like, oh, I'll put the drops in my water. Oh, yeah, I'll get to it, okay? But if you want to remember your dreams more, you need more zinc. You can buy the zinc here. Metagenics is a great make. And you put the drops in your water, and basically the rule of thumb with zinc is no zinc, no think. So, but I just know that I'm thinking really clearly. You put the drops in your water, and over time you will start to remember your dreams. And then you can keep a journal and write down all the dreams, and then you can look up the meanings. But I'll just tell you a few of the meanings. When we dream of someone dying, it actually means new birth. It's the opposite. When we dream about fruit, that actually represents prosperity coming in our lives. When we dream something about hair, cutting off our hair, losing our hair, it's a sign of health. You think about Samson in the Bible and his strength in his hair. When you dream about a letter, this means that a letter needs to be sent. So you finish the dream and you're like, who do I have to write? Who do I have to make amends with? When you dream about money, it's a good sign. It's particularly pertaining to lawsuits. So if you're in the middle of a legal battle with someone and you dream about money, it's a good sign for the outcome of this case for you. When you dream about a calm ocean, not a really rocky ocean, this means that two friends will reconcile. When you dream of prison, this actually represents freedom. When you dream about a rainbow, it means good health and wealth. And it brings me back to when my daughter said, Mom, you're always seeing rainbows, and you know, you've got this like little fantasy world going on in your head all the time. And she said, I'm seriously worried about you. And I said, but Taylor, this is how I've got through my life. I always will find the good no matter what happens to me. Always. And that's what saves me. I said, if it was hurting me to see rainbows, I would stop. But I said, it's only helped me. And she didn't know what to say to that. She was like, okay. So the reason she said this to me is because Miley Cyrus has the song Wrecking Ball. And I was sure that she's saying, I came in like a rainbow and basically you wrecked me, right? And Taylor says, no, Mom, there's no rainbows in the Wrecking Ball song. And I said, well, I'm certain of it. And she goes, okay, we'll make a bet. And she wanted to make it for like $50. And I said, no, I only ever bet $5 because I'm not a betting person. But I said, I'm sure I'm right. And so we go down to the computer, we look up the lyrics, and it was right there that there's no rainbow. There's no rainbow. But I just looked at her and I said, this has served me. Can you really see that I'm wrong? And she goes, no. And so I was allowed to keep seeing rainbows. When you dream of your teeth being extracted or falling out, it just means there will be major changes. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Just to reinforce this point about opposites, when we dream of war, it represents peace and prosperity. Yay. So that's it for the dreams. Now, the last story I'm going to tell you is the most significant story. I'm going to cry. It's the most significant story that I've ever had that taught me about signs. And what it is that, so I coach families. If mothers and fathers are having troubles getting along, I help them as a couple. If one of them is having troubles with their child, I help them get along better. If the child is suffering in school or with their friends, I help the child. And so sometimes I'm helping the whole family. Sometimes it'll be a meeting one day with the parents, helping them get along. Another day it'll be the child. And then sometimes there's nutrition in there too. I really try to help the whole family if they want it from a physical and emotional standpoint. So I've been helping this young girl for about 1.5 years, I think, and her name is Brooke. And she said to me, and she told me I could use her name, and she was suffering, and I'm not going to get into what she was suffering with, but she kept coming to me and we kept coming up with different solutions. And then one day her mom called and said, Meredith, I think that we have to send her to an institution because we don't know how to handle her anymore. Now, her parents had already sent her to an institution for 2 months, but the institution said she should have stayed for 6 months. And it was a true institution the way you see in movies. The only difference was that the walls did have color on them, but the way it was all handled was just like you see in the movies. And so they said to me, yeah, we're gonna have to send her to this institution again. This was texted to me. And so I went and meditated. And I sat on my stairs and I said, what do I need to do to help this girl? And the answer was, if she comes to live with you, you can help turn her around. And I thought, well, that's crazy. I can't have her come live there. The parents aren't going to agree to that. That's crazy. I just thought, well, I'll call them and I'll see where this goes. So I talked to the parents and they said, I'm sorry, Meredith, we just can't do it anymore. It's been 7 years that she's been struggling and we've been struggling to help her and we just can't do it. And I said, I understand. And they said, do you want to talk to Brooke? And I said, yeah. So Brooke and I, we work very quickly together. And I felt compelled to tell her what my meditation was. And I said, do you think that would work? And she said, yeah, I do. And I said, okay, so do you see any problems with this? You coming to live with me? And she said, yeah, I'm afraid I won't want to go back to my parents afterwards. And I said, well, that won't work. We got to think about this because you can't come if there's a risk of that. So she thinks about it and she goes, it's okay, I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss them. And I said, okay. So she says, how are you going to convince my dad of this? And I said, oh, it's okay, I'm very convincing. I was scared out of my mind about how I'm going to ask these parents to have their daughter come live with me. My girls had left home, so she would have her own bedroom. I got on the line with the parents and I said, how do you guys feel about Brooke coming to live with me for a month? Yes. 14. Thank you, that's important. So I said, how do you feel about her coming to live with me? Well, her mother immediately started crying and said through her tears, there are no words to thank you for this. And she said, you're such a good person. But it wasn't that. I had to save her from going to an institution, right? And I knew that there was nothing wrong with her. We just had to solve what the problem was. The father was seeing that the mother was agreeing to this. And he says, well, hold on, we need to talk about this before this happens. And literally by the end of the conversation, it was decided she was coming to live with me. And I can honestly tell you that throughout that whole day, I was in shock. I was just in shock. I couldn't believe, I was so honored that they would allow me to have her allow her to come live with me, and that they would trust me like that. And I also thought to myself, I only attract success now. Like with all my clients, it's only success. There will be people that will email me and I don't get their emails because I'm not supposed to work with that person. And at first I used to call Rogers and say, people are emailing me, I'm not getting the emails. And then I realized, no, it's that I'm not supposed to work with everybody that thinks they're to work with me. So if they don't follow up with me, I don't get in touch with them. And I only attract success. So I told this to Brooke's mom. I said, if I'm being directed to have her come live with me, I'm going to turn this around. So Brooke believes in symbolism even more than I do. And so every day, she stayed with me for a month and she just left yesterday. Wow. Yeah. And every day for a month, she worked so hard. She'd filled up a whole journal. She was always seeing the symbolism in things, always looking at things from a different angle. And this past week, so she would see her parents on the weekends. And this past Monday, when she came to me and she used my key to get into my house, it got stuck and she couldn't get in. And she says, well, this obviously has to do with me. And she says, am I not allowed in? And I said, no, it's not that. But I said to her, the last time this happened was when my father came to visit from Vancouver and the lock wouldn't work and he was trying to fix it and he never could fix it. And the symbolism was that if you look up lock not working, it's that you have to set boundaries with someone. And my father never came back to my house because he set boundaries with me, which is, I wrote my second book and I told the story of my childhood and he didn't want me to do that. But I had to write the story so that people knew what I had gone through, so that they knew that I could relate to them in helping them heal. If I hadn't told the story, they would just say, oh, she's like a happy girl all the time. She hasn't been through anything. But I was literally directed by my brother's spirit to write that story. So when my dad saw I'd written it, part of his life had been exposed, even though I didn't use his name, and he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And that's why he never came back to my house again. So I told Brooke this story and I said, it's something to do with boundaries, but I don't know what it means yet. And so we left it. We were at Wednesday night, this past Wednesday night. I was getting frustrated that I wasn't going to find the solution for Brooke. And I pulled into my garage and I sat in my Jeep and I just started to meditate. And I just asked myself yes or no questions, and whatever the first answer was I knew was the truth, because I've gotten used to doing that with myself. And it was, can you do this? Can you turn things around for her? And the answer was yes. And I'm like, I don't know how. And I just said, please guide me. As I was doing that, I pressed the button to close the garage door behind me because I thought if a neighbor comes, I don't want them to interrupt me. So I'll just close the garage door. Well, the garage door wouldn't go down. It just kept going up and going. And I'm like, oh, great. What's this mean now? So I didn't look it up that night, but Thursday morning I looked it up and it was again about boundaries. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be setting boundaries. Well, I don't know how. I don't know what, I can't tell her to leave. We've got to solve this, right? So I didn't understand what it meant. Fast forward to yesterday. We had solved a lot of things yesterday, her and I. And it's like an onion, right? Where you're just peeling down the layers of the onion. And we'd solved so much. And it was time to take her to school. And we walk out to the garage, and literally my garage door was frozen to the ground. And I could not take her to school. And we looked at each other and we're like, what's this mean? You know, she even said to me at one point, I could fall in a hole. And people would be saying to me, oh, it's so sad you fell in the hole. And she says, no, it's fine. It just means I was going in the wrong direction in my life. Like, she knows that these things that happen to us are with meaning and with purpose, always. So we're looking at each other going, okay, I guess we're not allowed to leave yet. So we went back into the house. We start going through things. We come up with more solutions. And we're so sure we have all the answers. I said, I wonder if the garage door would work now. I said, because that would mean if the garage, so when the garage door shut, we had to stay. We couldn't go anywhere. We had to solve the rest of this. But what happened was we went out, and in my head I said, if this garage door opens now, she's allowed to leave. And she's allowed to leave my home because our work is done. And what happened was we walk out, and the garage door was this much off the ground. It had already risen. It was no longer frozen to the ground. And I'm like, it wasn't like that before. And she said, no. And then I pressed the garage door opener, it went right up. I screamed. I literally went, ah, and I screamed so loudly, and I do not scream. And I said, we've got it, we've got it. And Brooke went home to her family and is the happiest she has been in 7 years. And Brooke is sitting here right now with the blonde hair. I am so proud of Brooke and the work that she did to arrive at the happiness that she has found in her life now. And I'm honored to have witnessed her journey. It made me cry more. When she left my house, I looked at the time. And you know, they tell you to look at the time, right? And it was 4:44. And when you look up 4:44, Google it, it's pay attention to the signs. Yeah. And literally, we sat and talked afterwards when she left, and then she came back later to get all of her things. And we sat and talked. And I said, until today, I didn't know how to make this seminar as impactful as my other seminars, because the other stories I told paled in comparison to the symbolism that we got with her living with me. And so she literally made this seminar. You see how one soul impacts so many others? She literally made this seminar what it is now, and to have this much meaning. Understanding the signs connects our hearts and minds, and it increases our soul's power. Your spirit guides will be so happy if you start paying attention to the signs, because it's a way in which they can communicate with you. And it's an easy way for them to communicate with you. So if you leave here and you notice there's a frog out in the snowy parking lot, that's something to look up, right? So they want to communicate with you. They want to help you. We are not alone, despite how alone we feel. I hope that this material opens your mind to the possibilities in the world and to all the wonder that is around us. There is so much wonder here. We just have to see it. I hope that after today, you feel very equipped to go out into the world and receive your personal signs. And I hope that you will start seeing more wonder than you've seen in years. Thank you. Thank you all very much for coming today. So good to see you again.